I think as a world, we're obsessed with nostalgia at the moment. Everybody loves old stuff, right? And I think part of the reason is we're not creating objects that will have the chance to become old.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Threshold podcast. And as with me, as always, is the great and powerful Richard Mulholland and Spilly.
every time there is shade at this intro.
You were the $1 billion business coach. Now you just Spilly with 3 L's.
I think it's because I'm wearing the non-obligatory white T-shirt that you guys are.
Yeah, there is. You definitely lose points for coming here. We're a black T-shirt company. Okay, we do not accept this dress code.
This is my puffer jackets and sweat.
Yeah, the two of you in your puffers, and I'm in a hoodie though. So which is terrible for me because I'm in summer.
Just ignore the.
What's the summer actually like out there on the Isle of Man, Rich?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not
they had
no
2
jokes
hours
aside.
last week.
Yeah, we've already finished it. Yeah, it was last Thursday at 3, and it's absolutely glorious. It's gorgeous. I realize that my relative joy of the outdoors is to do with color of sky, not temperature of air. And so it'll be crisp. Like last year, it didn't get above 20 degrees, but it was absolutely magnificent. I love summer. Like, it's just beautiful. Everything looks beautiful and green and wonderful. I loved winter here, but I also love summer here because it's not too hot.
Yeah. Well, we're in spring. I don't know what the hell's going on here in Colorado. It's raining.
Sorry about the ads, bro. That was a hard-fought series.
Yeah. 100%. But we get so much sunlight here. It's ridiculous. And in fact, this is the first time I actually can remember it raining in about 3 years. So it's either like snowing or it's dry. It's never raining, especially for a couple days straight. So very unusual. So what's up, boys? Hit us up. What's been going on?
Speaking about the weather, guys, you realize this is very
sorry. To all this
we are in different parts of the world, dude.
Yeah, but it's also horrific listening because by the time this comes out, if you're listening to this podcast and saying I could not give a shit, then absolutely. but what I am doing is informing you about why it's so wonderful to come and visit the Isle of Man. Also, the TT is about to start in a few weeks, so that's pretty exciting.
Nice.
Did you hear about the 2 motorcyclists killed in that crash in the UK last week on the weekend?
What happened?
On the first corner, there was an 11-bike pileup, one of those chain reactions, and a 21-year-old and a 27-year-old both killed, unfortunately.
Sure.
That's bad.
Yeah. Anyway.
So give us the updates, Rich. What's been going on in your world?
Been traveling a lot. I think since we recorded last, been all over the world, and so I've been home for a week, which has been really nice. I'm off to South Africa again on Saturday, and then I've got a talk in the UK the week after, and then back on the island.
Nice. How was your talk in Austria?
It was really nice. It was geez, Vienna's beautiful, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. You know what struck me is I recorded a little video while I was walking, but I want to share this as an observation. I think it's a worthwhile topic. So I think as a world, we're obsessed with nostalgia at the moment. Everybody loves old stuff, right? And I think part of the reason is, we're not creating objects that will have the chance to become old, right? So the biggest thing that we're creating right now is everything that's disposable and software that will evolve, but the idea of the artifact will be gone. And it was so nice walking through these beautiful old buildings, and just everyone's in awe taking photographs. And I just don't think that we're building things like that. And there's a loss. I think we've kind of lost this idea. We're building everything for us, whereas past generations built things for future generations. And I think that we need to have a bit more of that.
So I mean, I've done a lot of traveling around Europe as well, and the one thing that strikes me is just the history of it, like Berlin especially. The influence of the chap who did the what's that, Champs-Élysées in France, in Paris.
Right, yeah.
Same guy did same road, similar road, called something else, obviously in Berlin. And you drive through there, you're just like mind blowing. And we're not building anything like that these days.
Yeah, and I wonder why. Because why are we not building Why are we not building artifacts? Not look, there's I guess the Golden Gate Bridge, or we are building some big beautiful things, but why are we not building more about that? And it's not just buildings. Why are we not creating things that will last? And I think that this is why we are such a nostalgic society. Anyway, that was just a thing that struck me while I was walking through the old town. It's just how I feel like we'll be remembered theoretically from the impact as a generation of the technology that was created. But we're not leaving many clues or artifacts.
Spitty, what happened to you?
I have no idea. I'm just I'm old and slow, and so is my computer apparently today. My computer's basically on Richard Mulholland's work schedule. He's finished working for the week, so it's not my computer.
Rich, I saw your video out there about if people are going through a rough time, and how most people respond with asking them, or how can I help you? And your point of view is quite different. I wondered if you'd be open to sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, and listen, this is I even recorded it, and then I recorded a bumper for the start of it, because I recognize this is not a fully thought out idea. It's a concept that I've been thinking about. And it's basically, often when people are struggling, like maybe they're feeling a bit low or depressed, we always say to them, how can we help you? But actually, this goes to almost what I want to talk to you about today. I think one of the victory condition for life is to die useful, right? To get to the end of your life and still be needed. If you can die useful, you're winning, right? And die as late as possible while still useful. That's fantastic. If you die and you're useless, that's a problem. And often when people are feeling useless, they want to die. And I guess the concept that I was trying to get across was, if you went out to somebody that was struggling a little bit, let's say Brent was struggling, and he's not, he's amazing. But let's say I turn around to him and I phone him and say, Brent, sorry, bro, I know that you're going through a lot at the moment, and I hate to add to your plate, but I'm just dealing with some stuff that you're the only person I can think of that would be able to help me. I just need some of your advice, and I need some Brent time, because I know it will help me get back on track. And so instead of saying, how can I help you, saying, Brent, can you help me? And my gut feel, and it's purely a gut feel, is that moment, the moment where Brent is helping me, would probably do more value for Brent's feeling of self-worth than me helping him. Because actually, if somebody's feeling low and useless, the only way that you can help them is to allow them to be useful to you.
I think it depends also, depending on what the issue is in terms of I need help with, so I guess, but I to the Mother, the Father, the Holy Christ, whatever that is, right?
There's a dot on my screen, the teleprompter.
This is a serious conversation, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Rich, I think that in principle is that if people are feeling low and useless, that is a great approach. But you've got to establish that, obviously, to make sure that is where they are. Like, it's not something else. But I think it's definitely one of the things that I would imagine would be of value. But the other thing as well is that, and I'm terrible, I haven't got Mulholland's brain. I hear stuff and I never know where I heard it. But it was very much never ask. I think it was actually Gladwell who basically said, never ask, can I help? Just help. So it's like, as opposed to going, hey man, like, how are you? What is it I can do to help? Send them a meal, like rock up, buy them a babysitter, like whatever it is that you can do, but don't ask, because people generally don't go, oh yeah, actually you can help. Just do. So don't ask, just do. And even if the doing is wrong, even if like you send them a meal and they don't need a meal, it's the intention of, I'm here, I am here to help. So often it's the doing thing. And I'm, I think, guilty as everybody. I always go like, sorry, man, what can I do to help? Do you need anything? And the answer is always, no, I'm cool. As opposed to going, I'm on my way, or I'm sending you a mail, I'm buying you a voucher, or whatever it is that you think will solve that problem. Hey?
So, yeah. For the sake of being contrarian to that, because I do love the idea, and I love his thinking, by the way, the core idea of don't ask for, what help do you need, just offer something. I guess my question is, if I'm feeling really low and useless and depressed because I'm not, and everyone is feeling sorry for me and doing stuff for me, does that make me feel like a burden to the other humans? And do I feel better because Brent came over and changed my sheets and brought me a pizza? Or do I feel worse because Brent had to come over and change my sheets and do my pizza? Now, again, I'm not saying, I think both can be true.
Sure.
But I guess my and this is how I wanted to frame the video, is I'm just putting this out there as an alternative point of discussion. And you're 100% right that there will be cases where you'll know when it's wrong. I'm feeling terrible because I'm so overwhelmed. Okay.
Yeah.
Not like
do more work.
Yeah, can you help me do my tax?
and Mitch, it's probably the same with Gladwell's approach as well, right? Like you have to read the room. But I would imagine that people that are like maybe suicidal and feel like no one cares, if you came over and made my bed because it's a nice thing to do, I'd probably be less likely to take my life because now somebody else cares, or like someone cares about me.
I don't think so. I think people who are suicidal, they know people care. And that's the problem, is that they feel like they're a burden and a hassle to people. And I just feel like if I was suicidal and depressed and everybody was kept on ratting around me and speaking to me in a sad voice and trying to help me, I would just feel like, fucking hell, I'm just a drain on society. Whereas if those same people were reaching out to me because they felt it, and the line like, Matt, you're the only person I felt could help me with what I'm going through. I feel like, again, I'm fucking not an expert, but I just gotta feel like that would fill the tank a little bit more. Now, bear in mind those two things, then you could bring around the pizzas and dinner and say, I'm not doing this because you're useless. I'm doing this because you were so useful. Yeah. So, fuck, dude, I owe you a dinner. Can I bring over some pizzas tonight? How would that suit you? So,
the combination could work very well as well. Is that I'm coming over? Can you help me? Like the combination could be,
I'm going to bring over some pizzas. Will you be able to help me with something? Yep. So that kind of reciprocal. And of course, after you've helped, they may be more likely to ask for help because it feels reciprocal as opposed to desperate.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to weigh in there. I think so many people are like suffering in silence. Like if you're depressed and suicidal, like you're not speaking about that to anybody. You, especially men and especially business owners, like when they're going through it, like whatever it is, there's shit, cash flow, blah, 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 whatever, bad partners, whatever. And like no one's on the throne of like failure and talking about it or suffering. You know what I mean? And that's what I learned when I did that series, Secrets of Fail. And I did about 150 interviews with CEOs of these huge companies about their biggest failures. And the overwhelming sort of feedback that I got from these guys was like, this is so fucking awesome because I never have an opportunity to share this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know whether it's a pride thing or whether it's an opportunity thing. But there's just so many people suffering in silence. So I think maybe there's an opportunity here to, if you did something and you recognize that, you know what I mean? Like you can pick it up when someone's suffering in silence, I think. Especially if you have a connection to that person and you understand them and you know them or whatever, like you can hear it in their tone, or maybe they just don't communicate at all. They fall off the radar and it's like, what the fuck happened with you? And so, I think the opportunity is to get people to actually recognize that they do need help in the first place,
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? Is knowing.
If you were going to die or you wanted to die or kill yourself, it was a weird tangent here, just bear with me. Mm-hmm. And I needed to make you laugh. What would be the story that I would tell you to make you laugh? And what's interesting about that is that it occurred to me, like I was thinking about a few things, but I'll tell some stories now. But it's around the fact that if I needed to inject you with like a happiness moment to like jog you, in terms of our relationship, what is
your
that?
30th birthday.
I don't remember that. Shut up. I really don't. I've seen the photos. But the thing I say to you is that it's interesting because what you want to have in mind as like a weapon is like your peak experience between the two of you in a relationship. So it's like if there was a moment where like I know we connected or there was a real giggle or something really powerful happened, what is that one thing that you would tell someone to try to jolt them out of like a negative space? And I'm curious to know whether like not everyone has that, obviously, right? But I like, and this is the story here, right? So there's sort of two things in my mind. The first thing was at the same dinner, there were two stories. We were sitting, I think we were in Switzerland somewhere, one of these ski holidays, and it was your face when you showed Phil Tillman Two Girls, One Cup for the first time. He had never seen it. and we're sitting at dinner with like 5 or 6 guys and like everyone knew it was coming and he didn't know it was coming. And he was like, this is quite nice. And then all of a sudden, but it was your face that broke me, not Phil's face, right? Like it was that. So like, I'm thinking about stories where like what are the stories that you would tell people that would be like meaningful to them, to go like uplifting, right? And I'm wondering whether it's worth like thinking about those things, not waiting for those bad moments, but like occasionally just bombing off a mail to Phil and go, Phil, remember that time you watched the thing, and just like use that as a way just to like bring your friends up and re-engage and speak about those memories, because we have them, but we don't have the opportunity to often talk about them, and they are valuable, right?
Yeah, so I think it's actually an amazing. It would be such a cool thing, like a cool little app, or you could do it in your node thing. But if you imagine that every point of nostalgia is a node, and at a certain point in friendships, you're like, oh, this is a node. This is a thing. Because I've got friends from school and, my best friend all through school. And actually, we already catch up. We catch up rarely enough that when we do, it's all nostalgia. It's all just, do you remember when? But it's amazing. And it's so much joy. And there's a psychological thing to this, because that whole thing about mirroring feelings. And so when you remember what it felt like in that moment of joy and glee, you actually feel, your body remembers by feeling it. So your body mirrors how you felt then. So if I said, do you remember how it was when we did such and such, when we all did this, and when we broke those car windows with the coins that day, and we thought we were so committing mayhem, and then we giggle and laugh about it. That it never happened, by the way. It wasn't me. And sorry, Roland Spur, that we destroyed your school project. I still feel bad about that. Yeah, but when we did all of those things and the glee we felt that day, I can actually feel it again. I'm not lying, and it's Tony Robbins talks about neuro-linguistic programming, and I always say to people, you got to get that certain feeling. Remember the feeling when you were on stage, the best version of yourself, like in a dinner party telling a story. That's who you got to bring to stage. What you've just described is a way of doing that. And I think that strong memories have natural neurolinguistic programmatic data in them. So by sharing a story, you can give them access to a feeling that they may have forgotten.
Yeah, I do that a lot with Instagram Reels. So I was you guys know this, but I was a DJ for a long time. In the early 2000s, 2010, my first business was a record label and that. And so we did a lot of clubbing with a lot of friends and that kind of stuff. And so what I've observed is that my friend network communicates more through Instagram Reels than any other channel. And so the way that we do that is we find like these house record channels or whatever, and then a song will come out that we used to party to, and then Brendan would send it to me, I'll send it to Jason sends me a different one, and so to your point around NLP, it reinvokes that feeling like, oh fuck, I know exactly where I was when I heard that song for the first time. I was in this club with this guy on this drug.
Yeah. I think there's massive utility value in the sharing of memes, because they're saying, I thought if you send somebody something totally random, but generally why you're sending a person something specifically. And, Jazz sends me stuff every morning. I've fucking got to go through a queue of these things when I get home. But it's lovely, right? It's like kind of cute little moments and laughter. And it's she was thinking about me and so sent me that. I think that people are flippant about them, but I think there's tremendous value.
Mm-hmm. The thing as well, interesting to me is that, like, just on the sort of sharing the memes and sharing, reels and stuff. When I think about Facebook, the real value I get from Facebook at the moment in my life is Marketplace. Like, I buy a few things and I sell quite a lot of shit on Marketplace. And I like looking at people selling bikes and cars and stuff on Marketplace. So Marketplace is like, I enjoy scrolling, but the memories that it serves me. This is where you were 5 years ago. This is where for me, and that is my memory to myself, as opposed to sharing with somebody else, is massively valuable to me now, right? More than anything else. So, like, I don't scroll Facebook, but if I open Facebook and there's here's your memories from 5 years ago, I watch every single one. Okay. And then I share those sometimes with my wife or whoever I'm with in those moments, in the same way you talk about like the clubbing experience. That for me is the utility of Facebook, is actually self-reflecting on the things I did in the history. It's huge.
Yeah, the reminders. Because that was a service. Remember, for a while, that was a thing. That was another app that did that.
It was a Time Hop.
Time Hop. Time Hop app did that, and it was so well. And then Facebook, realized that was and fair enough, right? They're the platform. But you're right. I think it's absolutely magnificent. My favorite app to use at the moment is 1 Second Every Day. I used to use it years ago, maybe a decade ago, and now I've been using it again since I left South Africa. So a year and 3 months, and I record 1 second of video every day. And it's wonderful. And every now and then we sit down, like probably once a month, we sit down, we press play from the beginning. And we watch all these little 1 second videos, and it's quite nice sometimes, quite difficult. Sunday was quite a big day. We did quite a bit. And trying to choose, like I wanted to put in 2 or 3 seconds. The app allows you to, but like I don't allow me to. And so even though I know I've got like an ARB clip for the Monday, could I not just use that one? I'm like, no. And it's kind of nice just choosing, because your ARB days are cool as well. And these silly little memories you get from these ARB days are just, they bring you back.
Rich, Don Packett, he introduced me to Everyday app. Which was
Everyday app, yeah. I used to do that as well.
I'm 13 years now, every day, selfie.
Really?
And when you play that video at speed, bro, my beard goes gray, like the droop in the eye, like you can actually see me aging. And
are you 13 years in with Everyday?
I'm 13. So, and I say every day, I'm probably 20 out of 30 days I do it. Like it reminds me every day, but sometimes I just don't do it, right? But then similarly, sometimes I'll do twice a day from somewhere like interesting. I'll do it twice a day. But if you watch that video, firstly, it's like 5.5 minutes now of like dig, like it's a lot, but it's a remarkable thing. And the one thing that's interesting to me is that I used it in a talk end of last year. It wasn't a talk. It was more of like a facilitation. But the biggest thing I was trying to land was consistency, like in terms of sales activities. And I started off going, if you don't think I'm consistent, watch this. And you can't believe the reaction. People going like, hang on. Oh my God. Like, and you go, I've been doing it for 13 years. People are floored by that, right? And it's really easy because the app just makes it super easy. But like in terms of like a weird piece of content, I find that there's real value in like showing people that for some reason. And
what's so nice is hitting pause, right? Like when I used to use Everyday, you can pause on a photo.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, that's when we did. And so you've created breadcrumbs, and every one of those has that neurolinguistic programmatic effect in you. Again, it can transport you. Like these things are time machines in the best kind of way. I think it's like that name Time Hop was great. Like you should time hop every now and then. The problem is we can't live in our pasts, right? So I think that if you feel that, this is why I'm so obsessed with this idea of that the best is yet to come, because when you stop believing that, I think your life becomes problematic.
But the other thing that's really interesting is that Matt did a mock-up using AR of the three of us in future, the middle-aged men, right? And I'm curious to see whether like I could put that 13 years of selfies into the machine and go, right, go 13 years ahead.
Go another 13 years.
And watch myself age. And I think that's interesting because what happens is that when you see yourself realistically age, it also gives you a sense of shit, time is infinite, like a little bit of pressure, do stuff, enjoy life, stop stressing. So like putting it forward and seeing yourself age is actually valuable as well.
That would be a great addition for that guy's app. Because he's got all the data. Right?
I think what we're talking about really is this longevity of utility. So like I use Sora to take that design from our Middle Ages Men podcast image thing. And I said, just in this style, make these men older, and so Sora is from my experience at least, is a fantastic way to create utility out of something that was useless. You know what I mean? And there was even this photo that did the same thing with a photo that was taken of us back in our clubbing days. Me and 3 other guys. And I'm like, did the same thing, make these men older, and so it's the same pose, the same guys, but just old. And the perspective that you get, right?
Thumbnail this next episode, when it goes out, so people can see it.
Yeah. So I mean, and to your point right up front, Rich, it's about how do you become useful even, once you've sold your businesses and you're getting older towards the end of your life and things like this. And I think, and another thing you raised was like, we're not building things for longevity, like those beautiful buildings in Berlin and Munich and these things, they were built for utility, right?
Right. And the guy who built that, and probably wasn't the guy, but let's say the person who built it, right? They can late in their life walk past and see like, fucking, I made that.
Yeah.
Whereas, PowerPoint file.
What's interesting is that, just as a reminder, I'm not sure if you even know this, but I studied architecture, and in my practical year, I designed a couple of things. Like the two big things were this massive wall on the N1 highway between Johannesburg and Pretoria for this corporate park. So there was this big wall, and I designed the wall with like the shapes and where the logo would go. And then in Sandton, I did this cool staircase inside what was the Sun International Hotel. And for a long time, I could drive past and go, that's mine. I did that, right? But they knocked them both down. Just laugh, right? Like, it knocks them both down. But it's weird because I think that, like, in terms of producing something of value, I think that architects and builders actually have the best gig. Because nothing, like my wife was like, I'm not impressed by Porsches. I'm impressed by people who make Porsche. I'm going, yeah, but Porsches are also disposable. Okay. Yeah. But like, but also like, who made that Porsche? Outside of like Ferdinand's Porsche names attached to it, the modern Porsches, I don't know who made that shit, right? But some of these buildings will last lifetimes, like in generations and generations, in hundreds of years. And those are the only things really that stick around besides trinkets potentially, that you can actually put your name on it. Yeah,
but like watches, watchmakers, jewelers, certain cars, like fucking the VW Beetle. I mean, you still occasionally drive past the VW Beetle, and I think, geez, like how's that still a thing?
Yeah.
And it's not some classically perfectly restored thing. It's somebody's shitty skadonk that they're on the 5th generation of handing down. Like I'm more impressed by the person who created the Beetle than the person who created that SLK that.
Yeah. It's interesting. A friend of mine actually bought a Beetle like 3 weeks ago. I was like, why would I didn't even know those cars still existed. 2, why would you buy that? And she was like, dude, it's the coolest car ever. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, as far as I know,
it goes back to the Vespas as well, right? Which Brent and I both had. There's something like, so maybe it's not building something that lasts, but building something that feels timeless. And I think because
it's romantic.
Yeah, but artifacts can feel digital artifacts. Certain digital artifacts can feel timeless, like certain maybe talks. The Ken Robinson's talk like could be relevant to people. Maybe not that one. Maybe not a good example, but there's a lot of content and artifacts that still feel great when you listen to them or watch them years later. And I guess that's the idea, is how do I create something? We create something that's time dependent, not timeless. And we should be trying to do more timeless things.
Mm. I watched, I'm talking about memes, watching Instagram videos and stuff. And there's a father asking his 19-year-old daughter, what is the meaning of the following words? And like, he goes, what's the yellow pages? And she's like imagining what the yellow pages are, or like a Rolodex. What's the Rolodex? And he's using stuff that I think that we would all absolutely know. And it's mind blowing to me that in our lifetime, those things which were so pertinent to our existence, the next generation just don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things, but he was using
Filofax.
There were quite a few of them.
Filofax. What the fuck? I had a baller Filofax. Mine was, remember those silver metal drug lord briefcases? Well, all of us owned.
Yeah.
Those things, the briefcases that were like the kind of thing that gets used in a drug deal. I had a Filofax that was made out of that. If you're listening to this for any reason and you don't know what a Filofax is, actually, fuck. We should productize a Filofax and bring it back. I'm telling you, if you made a Filofax today and put it on Kickstarter, people would fucking go.
There's a generation that would probably buy it just for the nostalgia, right? That's what that is.
Well, actually, also for the functionality of it. Like a Filofax was a great fucking thing.
Mm.
Guys, I think we should do that. I think we just found our next business. Matt.
Yeah, there you go. I'm in, dude. Artifacts for the win. But, talk about timeless, building something or creating something that's timeless. As music is also timeless, right? I mean, I think of all mediums, it's probably the thing that lends itself to being timeless the most. And, when I was telling you about my first
Arts. Arts in general, right?
Arts, arts, creative arts, yeah. And so my first business was, I was 26 in London, and that was all vinyl. That's what we were peddling, and then the market, all Napster happened, everything went digital downloads, what have you, and then everyone was like, oh no, vinyl's dead. But today it's as a commodity. In fact, you will pay a higher price to get the same song on vinyl than you will obviously for a digital download. And yes, there's production costs associated with that, but I'm not talking about like a little bit, like £5, or £5 more. I'm talking like
LPs
£50, £60, £100, dude. Yeah.
On a market, on Discogs, the marketplace, trying to buy rare albums.
Yeah,
you're paying a fortune.
Yeah,
but it's funny because I was talking about the father. The one thing is like, what does it mean to burn a CD? And she was like, what does that mean? I don't know what burn a CD means, right? Like
stiffy disk, floppy disk.
Yeah, I mean, another funny thing we've been testing is different messaging. So like businesses that used to exist but now no longer exist because they missed the wave. And the whole thing is, AI and whatever. So, and so we've been putting this messaging out with one of our products. And anyway, it's like, hey, do you remember Blockbuster? They had a chance to buy Netflix twice for peanuts, and then they didn't. Netflix is now like hundreds of billions of dollars of worth of company, and then Blockbuster has only one store left over for nostalgia. Anyway, this chick responds, and I'm like, everybody should know Blockbuster, right? They must, surely. And she responds, she's like, "What's Blockbuster?" Dude, she's 45 years old. Like, I'm like, what? I was like, is she 21? Because then, because the last Blockbuster, this is true, the last Blockbuster store closed in like 2014. So it's not even like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Like, she should know, but maybe she just didn't rent videos. Maybe her family, maybe they didn't have TVs.
Super funny, dude. We had a proper laugh about that.
Bizarre.
Speaking of nostalgia, I watched Snatch again this weekend and Green Street Hooligans, two, for me, great old movies that I loved. Yeah.
Did they make a second one of Green Streets or not?
No. Do you know, it's bizarre because it wasn't that big a movie. I think it had a kind of like, my favorite movie of all time is Boondock Saints. And it had it's a cult following movie. I'm not saying it's the best movie, but it's my favorite. And Green Street Hooligans is in my kind of top 10 films, definitely. And I recognize that it's not the greatest film. But there's something about it. It's just really cool. And I think looking back to see, there are some films and you kind of know at the time that you watch them, like, oh, I want to watch this one again. Some films are rewatchable in a way that others aren't. And I'm finding this may be a sign of age, but I'm getting more joy watching older nostalgic films than current new movies.
But you know what's interesting about that is that I was looking for a Ducati 996 and I started going down the YouTube bunny like rabbit hole. And I found a guy that has a museum in Berlin that has the green Ducatis that they used in The Matrix. Okay. So he starts talking about it's the actual bikes that they used, right? So of course I go like, oh, I want to watch The Matrix again. Now I loved The Matrix at the time. It was mind blowing. The music, the scenery, everything was incredible, right? But that movie has not dated well. Okay, in terms of the CGI, in terms of like when you look at at the time it was like, do you remember the lean back and the bullets, and it was amazing.
Bullets up.
But Matt can do that on his laptop today, anyone can do that using AI. So it hasn't aged well. Saving Private Ryan has aged impeccably, and it's because it was done in a period of time and accurately done. So you can watch it over and over and over again because it's based in a reality. It's incredible how well that story has aged, and the footage has not aged at all. So it's amazing to me that two movies of a similar age, which were both amazing at that time, the one has become and they're both sort of cult classics, I suppose, in different genres, but the one has aged badly and the one hasn't. And I wonder whether people realized when they were doing it at the time. Hey?
Well, I think it's easier to make a movie about something that's already happened than about something that's not happened yet. Because the thing that's not happened yet, you have to use special effects. And again, you can use special effects, I guess, in Saving Private Ryan, but I think it was ambitious. And so I'm curious, did the film hold up itself?
Which ones?
The Matrix.
So I think the story, weirdly enough, has actually become even more relevant with the whole, AR,
Yeah.
the
Brain computer interface.
singularity and all of that. So the story, I think, is actually more relevant than ever, but the quality has just deteriorated.
Yeah, you'd almost want to see or maybe not a remake, but a remastered. So the same movie, same actors, everything, but we take the raw footage and we treat it with stuff we have today.
Yeah.
So it's not a new movie. It's not a remake. It is a remake, not a remake, or a remix, not a remake. That'd be interesting, right? Because I think that would be a fantastic thing for filmmakers to do today. And they're probably not thinking about it. It's to say, shoot the film today, but and when people buy the film, they get access to the film today, the film 10 years from now, and the film 50 years from now, and the film 30 years from now. And the film will come out in 3 iterations, and the raw footage will be provided as is, preserved really, really well, so future generations can use it as a better ingredient.
But Rich, if they said that the Matrix, the new updated version, the exact same movie with better effects, better sound, is now back at theater, that entire generation that loved that would go spend money again.
So yeah, 50% of people would complain and say it was worse.
Yeah, I love that film. Side notes: have you guys been talking about utility or the longevity of utility or value? Have you guys been to the Franschhoek Motor Museum that was founded by Anton Rupert?
I have not. And I've heard a lot about it and I've driven past it many times. Why do you ask?
Dude, that is the most mind-blowing car exhibit in the world. You talk literally right up there in terms of the types of motorbikes and cars and Formula One cars and this and that and the blah blah. But the fact that that's in South Africa of all places, that's the thing that makes that truly remarkable. If it was in the US, it'd be somewhat different because obviously access to inventory and stuff. But Anton Rupert literally went around the world and bought all these rarest of rare cars and put them in Franschhoek on a wine farm. You should absolutely go and see it.
What a cool hobby!
I know.
Be able to do that. That's amazing.
I'm not a big car guy, and I watch a bit of on YouTube. But there's a guy called Johnny Smith. He does the Late Break Show. And he does barn finds, right? And normally it's one guy with an old BMW in the Cotswolds, where it's normally usually that. But he did one now recently. And I kid you not, it's a privately owned collection. There must be several hundred cars. And the guy's going Porsche 911 1.0, Porsche 911 2.0, 913 1.0, and he has all of them. Okay. And all the Ferraris and all the Jags and all the, and you're like, firstly, whose collection is this? Because they don't interview the owner, they interview the guys that are keeping it organized. But you realize that firstly, you're very poor compared to some people in the world. People have time that they have it's basically like a monster museum, privately owned car collection. And then he goes, and we have bikes, and there is a row, and I kid you not, a row. There must be 80 to 100 Ducatis. It is remarkable. And no one ever gets to see these things. They sit inside someone's private collection. It's bizarre.
Apparently, there's the highest per capita, in the Isle of Man, massive highest per capita amount of supercars next to Monaco. Really? But these people have them in their hidden garages and stuff like this. There's the private jet airfield is as big as the airfield, for the airport. And I think the reason that you didn't see the owner is there's probably, they don't want customs and excise to see all of that. But it's interesting. Have you ever read Felix Dennis's book, How to Get Rich?
Yes.
So do you remember, I remember it was really interesting. When I was young, I read it and I was like, oh, I could do this. I could follow his formula. I was willing to do all of those shitty things. Now I absolutely know I'm not.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things was, there was a point at which I tracked myself. And I was probably at my peak, doing really, really well, probably had the limo and the Porsche and was doing, life was really, really good. And I remember tracking, he gives you a way of tracking where you are. And by his metric, I was comfortably poor. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And you're not even close to rich. Even if you're doing a baller life and your things in the realm of the actual rich, you're basically comfortably poor. Unless you're completely post-economic and you have no financial, you cannot be rich unless you can live your entire life really, really well and have no financial worries.
So
Otherwise, you can be comfortably poor.
Can I read the following? Because from that book, so we're talking about like my old school here, right? I used to take notes and highlight stuff. And then about 10, 12 years ago, I took a whole bunch of books, which I had, and I opened them up to the highlights and I copied them to Word documents, okay? Photographs, whatever it is. But this is the piece from Felix Dennis, How to Get Rich. So can I read this to you guys just because this was the piece that made the biggest impact to me. I have not read this in years. I don't even know what it is, but I know that it was important, right? In his book, How to Get Rich, Felix Dennis poses the following 7 questions that should find yourself unable to measure up to even one of these initial demands, and he means just one, and you're unwilling to fail, sometimes publicly and even catastrophically, you stand very little chance of ever getting rich. Question 1. If you care what your neighbors think, you'll never get rich. Number 2. If you cannot bear the thought of causing worry to your family, spouse, or lover while you plow a lonely, dangerous road rather than taking the safe option of a regular job, you'll never get rich. If you have an artistic inclinations and fear that the search for wealth will coarsen such talents or degrade them, you'll never get rich because your fear in this instance is well justified. If you're not prepared to work longer hours than almost anyone you know, despite the jobs of colleagues and friends, you're unlikely to get rich. If you cannot convince yourself that you are good enough to be rich, you'll never get rich. If you cannot treat your quest to get rich as a game, you'll never get rich. If you cannot face up to your fear of failure, you'll never get rich. So those are the points, right? And he says, if you don't agree to all 7, you will never get rich. Not one. If you fail in one of them, you'll never get rich. And like,
well, I agree with all 7.
Hardcore, hey? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree with all 7. Like they're very, very familiar.
I agree with all 7. I think he's totally right. The funny thing is, when I read the book, I was like, holy fuck, I'm fine with all 7. The funny thing is, when I look back now, I think I thought I was fine with all 7, but I don't think I was. I think the caring about what other people thought, I probably cared more. I thought that I didn't. And I had a devil-may-care attitude, but I cared about my devil-may-care attitude. And I think that was part of my, I don't want to say downfall, because I don't think I'm down, but I think it held me back, is that I became too invested in, I started to care too much about not caring. So that became a problem. The funny thing is, listening to that now, maybe 1 or 2 of them would be a tick for me. On almost every other one, I was like, no, I'd fail.
At a stage of life as well, but like I would not put my family at risk today. Like on some weird, like let's get rich kind of scheme, I just wouldn't do it. So like that for me would be like, if you said to me, take all your money and put it into this venture because you could make 15-fold in the next 2 years, and there was an element of risk, I couldn't do it today. Like, I
was informed with a brilliant entrepreneur, and he's an incubator. Actually, I'm almost certain he wouldn't mind me saying his name, and I think because this is an exercise he possibly runs with businesses, but it was in the context of forum, so I won't. And it's the only reason I'm not saying his name, but he did an exercise with us once, which was, how many times should you be willing to bet the farm? And his hypothesis was you have to be willing to bet the farm. Like if you look at, and it's a great example of Elon Musk, is he's put it all on the line so many times and won. And most of us back away way before that. One little thing, Matt, just because have you read the book, How to Get Rich?
No.
The coolest thing about it is you read the whole book. It's really worthwhile. It's like I think nowadays I'd probably read it on Audible just because it'd be a cool story and maybe some of the stuff would date. I'm not sure. I actually want to revisit it. But the best thing about it is at the end of the book, he basically turned around and says, okay, now I've given, literally, if you follow what I said, you will become rich. At end of book. Afterward. Okay? End of book. And you believe him. Like he says, this is the program to get rich. If you believe this, you're willing to do this, blah, blah, you'll be as rich as I am. Afterward. I am the godfather to 150 children because everybody wants me to be the godfather. And he says everything in a very cynical way. He doesn't mean to be. He says but the bottom line is they all want the super rich guy to be looking after them if anything happens. He says, the best relationships in my entire life have been with prostitutes and cats. He came up with the idea, if it fucks, what's it? If it
Floats, fucks,
floats, fucks, or
flies,
Fights?
rent it.
flies, rent it.
Yeah.
That was one of the lines in the book. If it floats, fucks, or flies, rent it. Like, but imagine that cynical point of view. So if you want to shag somebody, don't marry it, rent it. That's a prostitute. But now he's sitting there, retired, wealthy as sin, and but actually, lonely, and you definitely get the sense that he regretted his life choices, and he would have probably rather been comfortably poor. Because the book is actually a cautionary tale, not a. It reads like a guidebook, but the end of the book, he's very firm on the fact that, okay, but be careful what you wish for. It's fucking a monster book.
That
Underrated, actually.
That must be 20 years old, that book. How old is that book?
I'll tell you right now, I'm on Goodreads.
I mean, I'm thinking about that. It's ancient. Rich, just while we're talking about books, and we may have discussed this before.
2006, Brent, coming up to a 20-year anniversary.
Okay, yeah, so it's old. When we moved house the last time, I flogged a lot of books and just gave stuff away because no space and stop being nostalgic and carrying rubbish. But the book that I kept and I always kept and I forgot about was Seth Godin's Purple Cow. And you gave me that book. And I was grumpy because your version came in the milk carton, mine didn't. Okay.
I think it's here.
Okay. But the reason I brought it up is that my daughter carries it around because the cover's purple and she loves the color. So it's now like in my home, it's floating around the house all the time. And every time I see it, I think of Rich buying me that book. And that book must be, it's got to be 25, 30 years old. Hey?
Yeah. It's one of the classic marketing books, isn't it?
No, that book came out like 2000, and I mean, I had it here the other day. I used it as a prop in a video.
2002, so 20, going on 25 years, eh?
Yeah. No, is it? Yeah, but again, now that book in the milk carton, it's so funny because it was here the other day, and I hope somebody's not stolen it. Listen,
no
who am I kidding? This is the Island Man.
Island Man.
Nobody steals things on Island Man. It's at home. That's the answer. But now I'm wondering where it is. It's bothering me. But anyway, it's all right. I've still got the original copy in the milk carton. It's really cool.
So those are the books.
Yeah, again, talk about building an artifact, right? I didn't even. It's like the people who collect the ice hockey players in shrink and those models, and they never open them. Or Pokemon cards and things, and they keep them in their collections. Like, it's nice to build something.
You think about your entire collection of physical books. The most precious one is probably Purple Cow because it comes in that packaging. Just from a purely smart marketing perspective in itself, it's genius.
And because I've never seen the book, I know there's a book in there.
You've never opened?
I've never opened the carton, right? So there is theoretically a book in there, but it might just be a piece of wood. I don't know. There is, and also scarcity. The genius that he did there was, and this is something that we need to learn from today's day and age. We live in a world where everything is digital. We live in a world of absolute abundance. So everything is possible and everything is easy. And what he created was scarcity. There was 2 points of scarcity. One, he only made 11,000 copies in that edition. And two, you couldn't buy one copy. You had to buy 11. And the idea, of course, was that you would buy one and you would give the rest away. By the time I logged into his website to buy my 11 the next day, it was completely sold out. And so I mailed him, and Seth Godin's amazing. If you mail him today, he will mail you back, even if it's one line. And I mailed him and I said, Seth, this is the deal. I wasn't able to get one, time zones, South Africa. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, next week, Thursday, in my office in Dobbs Ferry in New York State, I'm running a special seminar for just 20 people where I talk about my thinking behind the book for the day. We'll do some workshopping. We'll get some lunch. If you fly over there, I'll give you a copy myself. So,
wow. That's utility
amazing.
Right there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I flew. I earned my copy. That copy of the book cost me, I don't know, and it was a Virgin upper class flight. That's where I came up with what you call the fucking Gaddy script, which fuck you. I dated it and checked. Mine came first because it was landing in that thing whenever that book launch was. Yeah. When I came up with, how when you will, what I do is. Yeah. I actually think it might have been for his next book, free gift inside with the cereal box. But the Gaddy script thing, I looked at it. That only started coming into play about 2011, 2012. I'd already done talks on that thing for years.
Don't blame me. I'm just telling you that's what.
Well,
made
just
it
because you told me it was
public.
derivative, and I was like, fuck you. That's my shit. Like, I remember that plane ride like it was yesterday. That stupid woman's face, her disappointment when I said I was a presentation guy. Like, I was like,
Where's the
I
rock
feel so
star?
triggered. But you know what as well, that both those concepts could be true. You can often, I think, come up with ideas, but even if the dating had been the other way, you get exposed to something and you hear it. My horrible come to Jesus moment was the second time I read Selling the Invisible by Harry Beckwith. Have you guys read that?
No.
So I always say, like, the books that influenced me the most when I started were Your Business Book Guide and Selling the Invisible. And Selling the Invisible first, and it was one of the most depressing things to read that book again, because when I read it the second time, I realized just how many of my ideas that I thought were my ideas were not my ideas. So I read it when I started Missing Link. I know 100%. I always say to people, that's what made us a presentation company. He spoke about the niche and why we had to be something more and just be one thing. And that's when I came up with this title for everyone. You tell everyone you're a presentation strategist. But then I came up with all these other ideas. And years later, I thought they were my ideas. And I went back and I reread the book about 5 years later. And I was like, well, fuck.
Seeds
It's all
planted.
his ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all his ideas.
Cool. I'm going to download it.
Looks interesting, man.
Gentlemen,
And principles are timeless, but the stories are dated. You'll talk about checkbooks and things, but I promise you the principles are timeless. Really good.
well, I'll tell you what else is timeless is his picture on the book.
Dude.
The cheesiest picture on the back of that book I've ever seen. Anyway.
You come out with a second edition of it where apparently, because I started recommending that book in almost every talk I did. And so he once reached out to me to mail me, to thank me for the recommendation. And then we got chatting, and then we were like connected on the socials. And then he reached out to me and said to me, I'm quoted you in the updated edition of the book. Which I thought was pretty cool because it was said to be quoted in a book that influenced you so much. So I don't know if the new version that's come out has that, but or if he ever did it. But I've read others of his books as well. But that one just was the one that I read at the right time, especially if you sell a service. Which, by the way, I want to hang up the concept of our service businesses on the threshold of death for maybe a future discussion. Is there anything left for service businesses? Do they exist, or will services be completely annihilated?